What's up everybody, Ben94 here. Welcome back to another episode of Ben Builds. Today we are continuing our work on our KV-1 model 1939, or, well, somewhat of a 1939 anyway. We have done a little work off camera. We went ahead and took care of the road wheels. All of these are set, ready to go. They've all been cleaned. They've all been sanded, polished down, so they're ready to be mounted onto the side of the tank. Though we're not actually going to do that today. If I mount those wheels up on the suspension arms, we might run into a problem later on. So what I might actually do is, instead of mounting all the road wheels now, I might wait until a little later and then mount them right before I'm going to go ahead and assemble the track. Today, however, we have finally made a decision about these rear engine vents, and we're going to put on those, both sides, and we're going to put on the mud scrapers that should go on now. Then we're going to work on the fenders, clean up some of the track, and get ourselves ready to go ahead and start painting this thing. And that's going to be interesting because, well, I haven't painted a tank in a while. So, alright, let's go ahead and get started. So what we have here, we have two sprues of tracks. We'll start with this first because, well, it's on top of the box. And each one of these track lengths have small ejector pin marks. Now, I'm pretty sure you can't see them, but they're very tiny and we're going to have to remove those. So what we're going to do that is we're going to take our jeweler file packet here and we're going to pull out an appropriate file. Let's go ahead and use this one right here. It's got a little edge to it. Should work nicely. And then we're just going to go ahead and just going to find out the little areas and we're just going to sand them down. This isn't going to take much because these aren't very big, so just a little bit. And we're only really going to focus on the ones that are visible. One nice thing about Trumpeter's link-by-link tracks is that the top run of tracks actually has sag already built into it. I'm not sure if you can see that on camera, but they have a little bit of a rise and a dip and a rise and a dip and a rise and then a dip back down again. And that is really helpful because the rubber band tracks that they give you, because they actually give you a second set of tracks in case you don't want to use the plastic link by link, they give you these. And these are just simple flexible rubber band style tracks. They attach to either end with a series of pins. You attach them down and you glue them. Well, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to use these plastic ones. And one of the main reasons why I use these plastic ones is because of the built-in track sag. It would be very difficult to get track sag on a rubber band style track. You'd have to go ahead and somehow pull down certain sections of it and tie it down with string or something to that nature. So we're not actually going to be using those. Instead, though, we're going to use these link-by-link tracks, and we're just going to sand down and file down a few of the ejector pin marks here on the track. Nothing too fancy. Also, keep in mind that when we want to go ahead and weather the tracks, well, hopefully, it will hide any of these raised areas that I may have missed. So we're just going to go along here and just remove all those. So I'll join you back in just a few moments after I have all of these finished up. So now these are basically sanded. We're not going to paint them just yet. After quite a little bit of sanding, and that was simply just taking my sanding and just kind of roaming along the surface of the treads, we are actually ready to prime them, paint them, and get them up on the tank. We're going to put those aside for right now, though, because we'll come back to that, and we're actually going to primer coat these with a color called NATO Black, which I think is a Tamiya color, XF63, I want to say, but we'll go ahead and double check that when we get to it. So for these, we're going to go put aside for a little bit. And now, let's start doing some assembly. So, after a lot of thinking and deliberation, I decided, instead of going with the brass pieces, which would require bending and gluing, maybe even soldering, I'm going to just go with the plastic parts. And the reason I'm going to do that is because there is a subtle downward bend to these here. Very subtle downward. I'm sure if you can see it on camera, but these are straight across. These are the later ones, and the early ones bend down slightly. So I'd have to reproduce that in metal. I can't do that. I don't have the skill to be able to do that. So I'm going to just use the plastic ones as is. We're going to go ahead and need a couple of our pieces and parts and tools. First thing, of course, our trusty sprue cutters. And we're just going to go ahead here and we're just going to cut flush to each side there. So there's one. And let's get this one on here. And two. This we'll put aside for right now. And we'll take our handy dandy file once again. And any of these burrs that we see, we're just going to go ahead and file them down. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Doesn't take a whole lot, really. There, I clipped them pretty close. Same thing with this. Any burrs, just going to sand them down. All right. So now it's time to glue them down. To do that, we're going to go back to our extra thin Tamiya cement. I love this stuff. This stuff is great. Should dry fit one of these. Make sure it works here. All right, looks good. So we're gonna go ahead. A bit of glue. Hit it there. Press down. Glue on the front, press down, and glue right down the sides. Press down. Just give you an idea what I'm doing here. Just using that capillary effect to go ahead and to just get glue in all the little crevices and cracks. I'm just going to press it down. Press it down. We're good to go. Let's go ahead and put in the next one. Again, find those locating holes. Go, snap it down in there. Fits really well, very securely, very snugly. A little bit of glue on the back. A little bit of glue on the front. Run a bead glue up the side. And another one up the side here. Press down. Installed. Not too bad. Now, let's go ahead and install the mud scrapers, which will go on the side here. What the mud scrapers look like is basically just a big L, and it was designed to keep mud from gumming up on the drive sprocket, inhibiting your move forward movement. And that would really suck if you're out in the middle of battle and you get mud clogged up when you throw a track or something. So they designed these little L-shaped, or odd-shaped, almost like a K, I guess. I don't know, these odd-shaped brackets that are going to go ahead and mount to the side. So go ahead and we'll cut those off here. They're 5 and 6. Let's go ahead and let's find out which one goes on which. Okay, so track like that. A5 on this side, which would be the left side. So A5 is going to be on the left. Now I have heard that these are actually incorrect, that they should be a pressed steel riveted or something like that, but I'm not really going to worry too much about that because you're not going to really see it. And as long as it gives it the impression, I'm fine with that. So we're just going to clean them up just a little bit so you don't have that gigantic mold line right in the middle of it. And I think we should be good there. Let's get the inside. They really need to. But yeah, it's good practice. The back side and like that. Front end. Okay. And they're actually going to be placed right there and right there. So, okay. We're going to go ahead and we're going to glue that one on. Simple. Easy, to the point, quick. Dash of glue on the gluing surface. Grab this. Press it in. Another dash of glue. I'm going to push this forward here, make sure we're all good. Alright. You got one on. Now you might think that it's going to come in contact with the dry sprocket. Well, it will, but that's why you have to be a little clever when you put these things on. You're going to have to slip it in like that and up into it and then press it on. So it's going to be a little tough to do, but we're going to be able to do it no problem. So we'll get the other side now, and that was number 6. Let's go ahead and cut this off here. There we go. And again, quick cleaning job here. Make sure that it's more or less clean. Doesn't have to be perfect. The nice things about Russian tanks is that you never have to have them perfect, because a lot of times the Russian tanks were imperfect coming out of the factory. Sometimes they had better finishes than others, sometimes they were poor finishes. So again, we just place that in there, put a little more glue on the outside to make sure that we have it all nice and filled. Press it down, press it in. Okay, perfect. Now our next step, we should actually put in the small lifting hooks on the back of the hull. According to Forbo Green, these rearmost lifting hooks here and here should not actually be installed. Instead, we should have those be masked over. They shouldn't even be there. There should have only 2 lifting hooks, one there and one there. I'm not so sure I want to really go through the effort of going ahead and filling those holes. So I'm not real sure what I'm going to do about that yet. Now, as you can see, I'm just going to cut this off of the sprue itself because it's easier to handle that way. Okay, there we go. As you can see, these are small. These are little itty bitty parts, very small. So we're going to go ahead and just remove them and conveniently place them on the lifting holes. For that, we're going to need a set of tweezers. At least I'm assuming we're going to need a set of tweezers because they look awfully small. Let's go ahead and get these things mounted up. So just like I did before, we're going to take our flush cuts and we're just going to cut. We're going to hold it as tight as we can and cut. Now, where you drop parts all the time. Now we're just going to take this, we're going to do a little drop of glue, and we're just going to try to fit this down on top of it. Now let's also use an X-Acto knife to go ahead and to press this in where we need it to be. This is going to be the difficult part because it's really, really small. Okay, there we go. I'm assuming they face like that. I can't be 100% sure. Let's look at this and see if they have shown them on here. Yep, they run parallel with the sides of the tank, so we're good. Let's go ahead and get the next one. Again, pinch it with your fingers, hold it, clip, let that part fall. Another dot of glue. Let's go ahead, paste, just drop that right there. Using our X-Acto knife, we're going to pivot it around. Just like that. It's very, very difficult to see because it's very small detail work, so I'm not expecting you to be able to see it, but it is there, trust me. So we're going to go ahead and take a brief pause here, and when we come back, we'll have them all finished up. Okay, we are back. Now, I've been working a little bit off camera here, and I went ahead and put in these little tow hooks. I did put the ones in the back, but I'm going to show you what I want to do with that, because if we look here in our reference material, this here, let's see here, this is the KV-1, and you notice there's a tow hook right there, but there are none there. I don't know if you can see that in the glare of the light, but we don't want those there. We want them to remove them. So what I came up with is pretty simple. Now sometimes you can use super glue, and you just basically take a little bit of drop of that and you just drop it over the hole, you let it cure, and you come back and you file it over. But instead I'm going to try something a little different. I have mounted the lifting hooks in the back here, and with my flush cuts I went ahead and I cut off the top of that mounting bolt, and that would fill up the hole. Now what I'm thinking about doing is coming back in and just filing down those edges. So then it would basically blend it in. Now this is a similar technique that I've used before, and I think it's going to work out alright. It's going to take a little bit of time, and I'll probably finish it up off camera, but it's good to know that I think it most likely will work. So I'll do the same thing with that one. We're going to take our flush cuts and we're just going to cut it as flush as we can. We're going to then take our file here and we're just going to file it down. So we'll get those off camera, finish them up, so you don't have to watch me file a little nub off of the back of a tank. I did mount the mud scrapers on, as you can see. These are not mounted, these drive sprockets. They do turn. So those are just stuck on there to kind of give it an effect to see if everything would line up. Everything lines up well. So now we're going to have to start assembling some of the parts for the fenders. Now this is the kit that would sit on the side of the fender for the cleaning rods for the main gun. So I put that, actually glued that off the side. And we're going to have to work on the fenders. Now the fenders mount onto the side of the tank with these little locating pins, and they just snap right on in like that. And that would just sit there like that. And when it comes time to mount them, we'll then mount it down here and glue it and then run them back. In the meantime, however, we're not going to attach this on, because once we put this on, we actually close off the entire area below, and I don't want to close that area off yet. So we're going to actually mount what we need to mount on the fenders before we attach them to the tank. I've never tried this before, but let's hope that it works out all right. I've got the instructions here opened up to the rear, step 13 and step 14, and as you can see, I have been putting this part right here together, but it's got me mounting these storage bends, the tow hooks, these fender brackets. The mount to the fender brackets are actually right before here. You can see them mounted up there at the top. So we're going to have to mount those and mount a couple of the odds and ends. For my research that I've been doing, the mounting of these toolboxes are actually incorrect. They have you mounting them here and here, but that's not really correct. And let me show you what I mean by that. Here we have a KV-1 Mod.1939, and the left side shows two storage bins mounted to the fender, and here two, one there and one there. So that's a little unusual. And also down here, now this is difficult to see, I know, but down here there is only one storage bin mounted on the right side of the tank. So this contradicts what we have here in our instruction booklets. So what we're going to have to do is swap them. One here on the right side. We're going to put two on the left side. Now, word on the storage boxes. These are the storage boxes here. These have actually been altered, shall we say. The original storage boxes had no grab handles and no armor reinforcement here on the top lid. So these, being the 1941 versions, had that. So I had to come back through and I had to remove the grab handles and I had to remove the excess, I guess, armored plating here that would come off the hood. I've already removed those, so these are ready to be mounted. So let's go ahead and check how this fit. They just fit right in there. And let's just make sure that these holes fit in here. So it mounts like that. So we're going to then flip it over And we can see the two holes, one there and one there. So we're just going to take a little bit of dab of glue, and we're just going to drop it right there. Now this is the underside of the fender, so you're not going to see any of these sinkholes, any of these marks. It's all going to be covered up because there's not a lot of room between the top of the tracks and the bottom of this fender. So I press this together, and now we're also going to take just a little bit of glue and use the capillary effect to go ahead and to get it right here in the front and glue that down. So also take a little bit on the side here and the side there. Now, you may have noticed I didn't actually put on the braces, but that's okay. I can do those right now, not a big deal. So let's just put on a few, and then I'll do the rest off camera. Let's move those out of the way. Let's flip to the page right previous to this. Here we go. And we're going to take the right side of the tank, and we're looking for C8, and we need 5 of those. So here's C8 right here. We're just going to take these and try to flush cut them as best as we can. 2 locating tabs on the bottom. And we're going to take this, and we're just going to drop it in the holes right here and right like that. So we'll have to make sure that these fit properly. These actually look pretty good. They need a little bit more clearance there. So again, a couple ways you could do it. You could cut these off, sand them down, all sorts of things. I'm opting to sand down the edges. Make sure that we're all in there as far down as we can go. Again, capillary effect on the front and back. And get those lined up as well as we can. Perfect, looking good. So as that goes ahead and dries, we'll be right back. Alright everybody, now we are back. Now I have completed the fenders. As you can see, I have all of the supports on. So let me give you an idea what this is going to look like here once this is ready to rock and roll. Once we attach all the fenders, to give you a good idea what this finished tank is going to look like. There's one side and the other side. So that's what we're actually going to come up with. Come up with a KV-1 Mod.1939 hull. Looking pretty good. But we're not going to put those on quite yet. We have a couple more things to do here with the fender. Now I was actually looking at this. This is, from what I understand, this is the container that houses the cleaning barrels for the gun, the front main cannon. So if that's the case, then I could just simply take the other part of this, which is these right here, and attach those to this and call it a day. Or I could do something a little different. If I wanted to, I could remove this section and remove this section here, and I could actually combine it, and I could just have simple little loops there and forgo this entire part. I'm going to think about that. I'm not necessarily going to do it, but I'm going to think about it. Worst case scenario, I don't put this on at all, and I put maybe a rolled up bed or some sort of tarp along the side there. It'd be kind of cool to have something like that on the side of the tank. You always want to try to find something cool, something to spruce up your model a bit. Things like tarps or canteens or helmets, that sort of stuff, always fun to put on there. So the next thing like I mentioned before, return rollers. Now these are actually the wrong return rollers. We kind of already know that, and that's unfortunately just the way it is. So I'm not going to spend another $20 to $25 to buy a different kit and source road wheels out. So we're just going to run with these. And these are pretty much the same as any other. We're just going to go ahead and clip these like so. Flip it around. Cut all these, drop them into my hand. And we're going to cut the tops here as well. We're going to go ahead and attach both of these together. Now that's just going to be a simple matter of taking this wheel, taking a bit of glue, Dropping a bit of glue right there. Taking the opposite side of this, pressing together, and hold. So we're going to finish up this. We'll be right back. And we're going to go ahead and call it a day for this now. Next time we'll come back. I'm going to do a little minor sanding, a minor shaving down different parts and things. So next time when we come back, we'll go ahead and we'll start airbrushing. I think we'll be at a point next time where we can actually pull out the air compressor, pull out some paints, mix them up. We can pre-shade, post-shade, weather, and all that good stuff coming up. So stay tuned. We will be back with another episode. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.